Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. Landi Jac is with us from Cape Town, South Africa tonight. She is a coach. She's a keynote speaker in Search of Excellence. She's the CEO of Circle of Excellence, a master's in industrial psychology, an honorary World Women Leadership Award winner, a conscious leader, a global traveler, and a dancer. She runs a business where she tries to help leaders become better leaders. And I've been following her for a while now, and her comments, her inspiration, her posts are very motivational and great coaching. Welcome to the show.
Wonderful to be here, Brian.
So tell me, what is it that you're trying to do?
We're trying to get people to realize that they're not living their full potential. We're trying leaders to see, look, the more you're going to dig into your potential and get to know who you are, the better impact you can have on other people's lives. Otherwise, you're just fooling everyone.
And you do this globally?
We do this globally. We do it in every single country except Antarctica, but we're working on that one.
And how'd you get into this?
Well, I started in corporate. I actually went and did corporate and played around in boardrooms like the one here behind me, but soon got really bored, and I felt there was more, than just playing in one country, and there's people all over this world and cultures. And, I know you're a curious person. I'm a curious person, and it's just too many things to do in so little time. So eventually went from South Africa to UK to more deeper into Africa, and eventually globally, finding people who we call conscious leaders who wants to play a bigger game. And for us, a conscious leader is someone who wants to make a profit, want to make money like all of us, but also want to make a difference, get up in the morning and feel, I want to make an impact. So we travel probably 7-8 months out of the year. And the rest of the time we live here in Cape Town, South Africa, and we just find these people. Our marketing approach is not very much of a farmer one. It's more of a hunting one.
Hunting one? What do you mean by that?
Well, we look for people on LinkedIn and we like their profiles, we like their faces, we like what they stand for, and then we get them in a room, in a boardroom, and that's how we start our journey with our clients. We don't really openly advertise Circle of Excellence or market that. We hunt them out, we travel to the country, we have a boardroom meeting in the country with 10 people, handpick our clients, and then go on a lifelong journey.
A lifelong. So these are relationships that last for a career or a life.
Long-term relationships. We're not really interested in clients that's around for a year or for 2. Of course, people come and they go, but our approach is not to have a customized client experience or a personalized client experience. We go on the basis of love. We love these people. We cry when they win their awards. We laugh when they're successful in life. We're building a global family, Brian, and that's what makes our business beautiful.
Now, I got to ask, you're the host of a Bali business school in Bali, Indonesia?
Yeah, every year we have a Bali business school. This year we had it in Bali again. The only time we didn't have it was during the virus, during COVID. And then what happens, our clients comes from all over. We usually have 20 to 30 people there, and then we have a business school, and then we teach people about business and life and having a lifestyle and generally just be happy and fulfilling your purpose.
So you've got a master's of economics in industrial psychology. Tell me about how that academic background has assisted you, if any.
Well, I initially didn't want to study. My dad was so unhappy with me because I said to him I want to become a secretary, and he was so unhappy. That was my ambition. Shows you how life works. So I wanted to be a secretary and interior designer, and he didn't like that at all. And so he said, just go and study something, get a general degree, whatever, just see what works for you. So I did my first 3 years. I was utterly bored. I remember economy, I barely made it. And then in my 3rd year, I discovered industrial psychology, and it was like something in my head just exploded. I was like, I really, really like this. I love human behavior. I love patterns within human behavior and to predict where it's going to lead. And so I went from being a very, very poor student in economy to discovering industrial psychology and just cum laude. And because I was happy with what I've done, and I found something I really love. And so from there on, I went to honors and I went to masters, and I have been considering doctorate, but I don't like the sound of Dr. Jac. sounds a little bit Jacqueline-eyed. So I did my master's degree and in industrial psychology, and that led me into a corporate career where I was in human capital management for quite some time until I decided to leave and start my own business in human capital development, in risk management, in business, in labor relations. But that got me in a whole different world. I thought when I was going to be in HR, I'm going to be fluffy and loving people, but it's not how it worked. It took me into the world of labor relations and drug busts, actually.
Drug busts.
Yeah, yeah.
Why
Corporate
drug busts?
drug. Well, it's a it's a strange story because when I was in varsity studying industrial psychology, I got approached by Secret Service and they wanted me to become an industrial spy. And luckily, I had the savvy to ask them, "Look, what's the downfall?" And they said, "Well, in South Africa, if they catch you, you'll be killed." So I said, "Okay, I'll rather skip that." But I got really, really interested in what the hell is happening in these boardrooms that people would give their lives for that. So when I got finally into human capital management, I just constantly kept being asked by my employers as well as by my clients later when I had my own business to do drug busts, meaning they want me to come early in the morning and check what's going on in people's offices, look for evidence of drug use, make use of the local police and whoever I need to, and catch people in the workplace. And it was staggering. I realized that drugs in the workplace, especially in corporate, is a huge, huge problem. I got out of it eventually because of death threats. It's a dangerous game. And I didn't do that many, but gave me a real perspective on what's going on in the workplace and how people are pushed to perform to their absolute limits.
What's happened in that area? Has it gotten worse? Has it gotten better with COVID and people's working hybrid?
Much worse. It's much worse. And I think a big problem is, even though a lot of people is working remotely and there's a lot of people who's for that, working remotely means the employer lose control over what happens during working hours. So, even though you don't want to control people, you want to manage people and you want to make sure people work together. But taking a team out of a building and scattering them across workplaces in the world causes a lot of health and safety problems for employers and also makes performance go down exponentially. So it's a problem, and it's a problem that no one has really come up with a proper solution.
You think that performance goes down exponentially. Some people think that performance goes up. There's been some studies that show that people are happier working from home. How do you explain that workforce performance goes down exponentially?
Well, I think first and foremost, a lot of the people that do the studies is the ones that's for working at home. So obviously, many times the results are skewed because it's biased, because they're trying to make a case of working from home. So then they get a sponsor, then they have a study, and then guess what's the outcome? Performance is better from home. I would say that working from home and performance going down exponentially is based on one thing and one thing alone, and it's distraction. And it's something that we as a human species struggling with more and more because of the fact that we have social media, we have 1,000 things going on at the same time, we have interruptions. People has been complaining about distraction for many, many years at the workplace. Distraction without being at the workplace is even 10 times worse. And we don't have the self-discipline to manage it. I would like to see myself as a very disciplined person. I sit at home and get distracted by the laundry and the dog and the this and the that. So I don't think the solution is out there yet. I don't think long-term working all under one roof is necessarily the answer. But I don't think people scattered all over the world getting distracted all the time is the answer either. And I think there's studies for both. There's studies that will tell you that working from home is better, and there's studies that will tell you working from home is causing a lot of mental health problems. In South Africa, working from home has caused domestic violence to go up big time. And employers
domestic violence to go up just because people don't want to spend that much time together?
They don't want to spend that much time together, and they're in each other's space all the time. It's a condition of the human species to give each other space. So people are in each other's space, irritated, working hard, performing high, and now rather than taking it out on your colleague, you're taking it out on your partner or your spouse, and it's causing problems.
Really? You've used two terms that I think we should better explain to everyone. What is industrial psychology and what is human capital?
Well, industrial psychology really is different than clinical psychology, that a clinical psychologist would work with a person one-on-one on what I call their imprints. Imprints mean emotional undercurrents or, challenges or problems that they're trying to face in order to live a more fulfilling life. So that's clinical psychology. And of course, that goes into many areas. That goes into human behavior, that goes into mental fitness, into mental wellness, that goes into dealing with things like depression, and I can go on and on. Industrial psychology is more in the workplace and it focuses more on the group context. So within industrial psychology, you'll get things like team behavior, you get things in there like group dynamics, you get things in there like mass hysteria, you get in things like consumer behavior. If I'm going to put an advertising campaign on, what is the typical profile that I'm targeting, and what is the typical consumer behavior associated with that? So industrial psychology is very useful in the marketing sphere, also in sales, but also in human resources, where you're trying to get groups of people to perform at their utmost best for their own goodwill as well as for the goodwill of the company.
Okay. And human capital?
Human capital is really about canalizing a group of people so that they become an asset to the company. So, I don't like the word capital. It's a bit outdated because it seems like we're turning people into money. I worked for a company that used to refer to people as warm bodies, and I thought, wow, that's so outdated to completely, discard the individual and call them warm bodies. Human capital has been a word that's been used for many years in the industry, but it also feels to me quite cold and callous. But human capital management would mean to say, what, we as a company are investing in humans, and they are one of our main assets because they're going to drive performance, profit, bottom line, whatever it is the company's after.
This is going to be a fascinating conversation tonight. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have to explore more
Welcome.
what exactly your coaching and your boardroom sessions are all about. But we got to take a break for a message first of all. So we're going to be back in 2 minutes with Landi Jac and the circle of excellence that she's operating in and the people that she meets and the coaching that she provides. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I'm chatting tonight with Landi Jac. She is the CEO of the Circle of Excellence, a business and world-class mindset strategist. She's in Cape Town, South Africa, and she's got really quite an interesting background. And I think it's going to be interesting to and fascinating to explore what she's all about. So, Landi, if I was lucky enough to be hunted by you, the way you described it, and be invited to join one of your sessions, what would happen? What would we talk about? What would you do? I'd be invited to a boardroom with other executives. Is that correct?
Well, we'll look for you on LinkedIn first, and then we'll look at certain things. So, for example, we'll look at your job title. Are you in a leadership position, for example? We'll look to see if there's any evidence that you share values with us, which is in our case, freedom, prosperity, purpose. For example, we won't be inviting a person who's highly ambitious and want to drive Porsches all the time, and nothing wrong with that, but we're looking for the type of conscious leader who runs their own business and want to make a difference. We like nice people. And then once we've looked for you, we'll invite you into a boardroom, and we usually have maximum 10. And then we'll have a flip chart in the boardroom and then start asking you to put any questions on the table that's business related, mindset related, lifestyle related. So typical questions we'll get is, what can I do to improve my marketing? What I am a consultant, and how am I going to scale my business if I'm only an individual? Or we'll get questions like, I really want to sell to people, but I don't want to sound too salesy. Or, I'm a person who speak locally. I want to take my business internationally as a speaker. How do I do that? We write all those questions down on a flip chart, and then we spend 3 hours answering those questions. And that's usually the start of a very long relationship based on whether they like us or whether we like them. Well, both.
And why with a group of 10 other people? Why isn't this not one-on-one?
Because of 10 people, you create group dynamics. You know, people show up different one-on-one. I mean, me and you are having this conversation now, and I'm showing up in a certain way, and you showing up in a certain way. And it will be, again, a little bit different if we're sitting in a lounge and we're having this conversation. But the moment you bring other people into the room, the dynamics change, and it's not that easy for people to manipulate the environment. So we love having 10 people around the table because of how it makes them show up. But also, you know, if you ask a question in this context and another person answers another question, eventually a lot of answers get given to a lot of people as opposed to me just giving answers to you. So the nature of the relationship changes.
I've found with a lot of very senior executives, they want the focus to be on them and their issues. You know, do they want to share with 9 other people? Do they feel comfortable sharing with 9 other people?
And yes, they, you know, when people walk out of our rooms, and we have these masterminds all over the world. I mean, our content that we provide to people is based on these masterminds. It's based on the questions that people ask. We basically take those questions and we package this into content that we provide other people with. But in order to answer your question, because of our vetting process, because we handpick the people in this room, we every single time have the most amazing experience because we've got the right people in the room. We don't have the people in the room with the egos. And you know what? We have very successful people in our rooms, really stunning, successful, award-winning speakers, authors, coaches, consultants, CEOs. And we have very good, robust conversations because of the fact that they handpicked. Me and my husband Mike pride ourselves on the fact that we don't have demanding clients. We just want to give them a service, and they just want to have an experience, and it works. So we don't like that idea of, you know, the client is king, or, you know, we king, or any of those things. We're a bunch of people who's coming together in a room. Questions are asked. We're all doing the best to our ability to get them answers, and they leave. And out of that, usually, if you have 10 people, comes 1 or 2 clients that goes on a very long journey with us. But we don't go in there selling them. We go in there taking 3 hours to create trust.
So the first session is these 3-hour conversations with 10 other people. Then if people decide to become your client long-term, what's the process then?
Well, invite the people in the room to have a one-on-one with Mike, and he'll answer any questions they may have. And usually out of the 10 people, 4 or 5 will take up that offer. And then they'll have that call with Mike. And out of that call, you know, it becomes very, very clear whether Mike likes them and whether I'm willing to work with them and whether they like us. And then from that comes 1 or 2 clients, and then they're on a journey with us. And we probably have now about 250 of these Circle of Excellence members around the world, which we call our global family.
And if I became one of your clients, would we go to other 10-person boardroom sessions, or is it one-on-one, or is it flying off to Bali, or what's the process?
Well, we like to see ourselves as an ecosystem, not just as one experience. And the reason why we've built this ecosystem is because of what we call multi-dimensional education. You know, when you go to school, you're bored out of your head because your education is not multi-dimensional. I mean, you have your book and you learn from your book, and you maybe sit in the classroom and you have an exam. Any other learning experiences may be, if you're a sports person, you'll be on the playground and so on and so on. But it's not really there's not really a lot of ways to learn. What we try and do in our ecosystem is create various ways for our clients to learn. So some of the ways when you become a Circle of Excellence member that you can learn is to be on calls with us, on a WhatsApp call. Some of them will be on a Zoom call. If that doesn't work for you, you can fly to Bali and come and attend the annual business school there. If that's not really your thing, then you can come to one of our 2-day delivery events. If that's not really your thing, we have in our ecosystem where you can travel with us for 11 days. We have in our ecosystem where you can come and live with us in a house for 5 days. Or we don't just pick a house, we'll pick something cool, like we once did it in a Dracula's castle. And we have French villas that we book, and we will be in Santorini. And so we've created various experiences for a Circle of Excellence member in which they can learn. You know, some people really learn well by sitting on a call with me for an hour and having a conversation, but That doesn't work for some people. Some of them want to read a book, some of them want to go online and look at a video, and some want to actually get on the aeroplane and be in Bali at a business school. And it blows our mind when we see this. We will sit with a person on calls and we'll say to each other, we're not having a breakthrough with this person. And then they'll get on the aeroplane, change the environment, go to Bali, meet other like-minded people, and explode with, you know, ideas, or just fit in with people, and so forth and so forth. So we all learn in different ways. And the more the Circle of Excellence group grows, the more me and Mike are inventing ways to keep people engaged in the learning experience.
Sounds fascinating. So if I came to one of these Dracula castles or some other place for 5 days, what would happen for 5 days? Is it sessions nonstop? Is it like, what would happen for 5 days?
Well, we set it up like it's a conversation in the lounge. You know, me and Mike believe we in a time, and it's not like this for everyone, but in our experience and with many people we meet, there's a lot of successful, awesome people out there who's really alone, who's really misunderstood, who doesn't have the opportunity to have robust conversations, and who's taught that if your opinion is different than another person, you're going to get shot down, right? This is not what we create in our environment. We create in our environment the idea that if you're part of a global family, your brother is going to disagree with you and your sister is going to have a different opinion. And let's open ourselves up to these conversations and hear what the other one wants to say without killing them and without, you know, not being open to other people's opinions, because that's diversity. Diversity for us is not you are from a certain race or religion or color. Diversity is this person is very different than I am. They have a very different opinion, but I'm still going to love them and potentially even create something with them. So we take that philosophy and we try and simulate that in a property. Let's say, for example, now Dracula's Castle, because it's a fun one. So you would come over, let's say, with 5, 6 other people. We try and not make it too not more than that. Otherwise, you know, it's tough for me and Mike to hold that space. And you'll arrive and you'll meet these people you've never met before, and you'll be shown your room, and you'll put your bags in the room, and we'll tell you, look, Brian, we're kicking off at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, we'll be sitting in the living room. If it's winter, there will be fire. If it's summer, there will be iced tea or whatever. And we'll have a program. Usually we run an impact program. It's an acronym, IMPACT, where we then start the conversations. How are you going to influence the people in your target market? M, how are you going to create meaning in business and life? P, how are you going to position yourself? And so on and so on. I'm not going to bore your audience with the whole thing. But then we start having meaningful conversations about your business, about your life, about your lifestyle. We swim together, we cook together, we laugh together, we cry together, we go out together and have a dinner. And when the 5 days is over, people's got a new perspective.
Do you think that the perspective that someone from South Africa and someone from Europe and someone from the United States and someone from Canada would be relevant for each other?
Incredible. We're very similar. We're very similar. And I think that's the message that me and Mike has for the world. You know, of course, we talk about playing a bigger game and potential, but the more we travel, the more we go around, whether we sit in Mongolia or in Egypt or in Canada or in, you know, Florida or in Cape Town or in Auckland or in Sydney, we all want money, we all want love, and we're all skeptical and we struggle to trust. So there's differences, of course, but you know, if you have the eyes on and you're looking for similarities, you're going to see similarities. But you have the eyes that's going to look for differences, that's all you're going to see all the time. So we have so much in common.
A lot of people wouldn't think that. A lot of people would think that you know, we're pretty different, and a lot of people in different environments stay in their own environment forever. You know, the statistic about how many people in the United States don't even have a passport and never leave Midwest or the Northeast or whatever, unless they're going on a cruise in the Caribbean. So it's a different attitude that you've got about that we're similar, not just, you know, many people in Canada would think we're similar to Americans, but don't know about South Africa and far wider than that. So you really think there's lots we can learn from people around the world.
Incredible. You know, I don't think it's because I have such an open mind, or even that it's my perspective. I think it's based on exposure. You know, Mike Marsman has been to 114 countries and I've been to 50 plus. When you get to the sixth culture and the seventh culture and the eighth culture, and you're over your initial shock or your initial mindset that people are different than you, and you start using your ears and you listen to conversations, you really pick up on the similarities. I don't think it's that some people are closed-minded and some people are open-minded. I think some people are not very well exposed and some people are very well exposed. I mean, it's a well-known fact that a lot of people from the USA do not travel a lot abroad because they've got 2 weeks of leave. I mean, who's gonna, it's difficult to travel a lot if you only have 2 weeks of leave a year. You're going to maybe use it to be with your family, but if you take a lot of people in the USA and you get them to go to 50 countries, they're going to probably sit and say, wow, we are very similar. We have a company that we sold in 2019, a travel company. Thank goodness for the timing. But we sold it in 2019. It was called Soul Journeys. And we took people on these journeys with us to all these sacred sites and had different learning experiences there. And we would have a bus, Brian, and on that bus would be a Christian and a Buddhist and a atheist and a person from Cambodia, and a person. We once had a person from Mongolia and a person from China, and they were not really happy with history and how history went down for them, and we got them to have a robust conversation. But we're all in a bus, and on the first day, people are shy and they don't really talk, and then they start to get to know each other a little better. And here by day 3, maybe they're having a glass of wine together. And those people cry when they leave each other. They're like family. There's no differences anymore. They learn that you have a problem with your elderly parents. I've got a problem with my elderly parents. You've had a problem with money in the past. I have. You have a family member who's got cancer. Oh, my goodness, I have that as well. All these differences melt away. But how will you explain that to a person unless they've experienced that themselves?
What an incredible experience that you've had traveling around the world, meeting all these different people, working with them to further their careers, further their leadership, further their companies. Just a fascinating, you must have some really interesting opinions on what makes great leaders and how you can train them or work with them so they become better leaders. We're going to take a break for some messages and be back in just 2 minutes with Landi Jac, who's the CEO of the Circle of Excellence organization out of Cape Town, South Africa. In just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everyone. Back in 2 minutes. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I'm having a really interesting conversation with Landi Jac. She is the CEO of an organization out of Cape Town, South Africa, called Circle of Excellence. And it sounds like what she does is really creates these mastermind groups of like-minded leaders, but from sort of global societies and global countries, and gets them together to talk about what makes a great leader. Landi, you started out by saying that you do an impact session, and then you didn't go through all of the letters of what impact stands for. Would you mind doing that?
Not at all. No, don't mind at all. So we believe that a good leader is someone who has the ability to make an impact on other people in a positive way. And many times, especially with the social media craze going on at the moment, when people think impact, they think making impact on 1 million followers that I have on Facebook or Instagram. And that's great if you can do that. But what a lot of people forget is impact starts at home. And this is something that I find funny. You get some of the most incredible leaders out there, but if you go and talk to their partners and spouses, children and family members, they will tell you a whole different story than what they've seen on TV, So we've developed this program to help leaders look inward and go on the inner journey where you can actually stand in front of your mirror in the morning and say you're making an impact, as opposed to standing on Instagram stories and telling people you're making an impact. So the I stands for the extent to which you can influence other people. And when I talk about influence, I talk about positive influence in order to move people in a positive direction. I'm not talking about manipulation, which is different. And I think people actually confuses the two many times. M stands for meaning. To what extent as a leader do you have the ability to find meaning in what you do and create meaning for other people? Positioning. This is a big one. I'm very passionate about positioning because these boardrooms we have leaders sitting in, We usually start these sessions by saying, hey, get up for 3 minutes and pitch what you do. I mean, we're here, we're going to answer some questions. Why don't you pitch what you do to other people, and we'll give you some feedback, like Dragon's Den, on whether your pitch is landing well or not. And what comes out of these sessions many times is people have a very poor ability to position themselves. It seems there's still a stigma that if you're going to position yourself as a leader, that you're bragging. And a lot of people suffer from this imposter syndrome. You know, if you're going to stand up and say, you know, I have value to offer, then you're bragging. And that's not the case. So we teach people that positioning is not about bragging. Positioning is about helping other people to trust you as an expert in your field. It's a trust issue. It's not a bragging issue. So if you don't tell people what you can do for them, or that you perhaps won an award, or that you're the author of this book or whatever, it's going to go past them and they're going to go to your competitors. So we talk about positioning, acceleration. We talk about acceleration strategies and how you can actually accelerate your influence, you know, partnerships that you can form with other people, and many, many strategies out there for you to accelerate and to learn from other people. We talk about C, which is cultivating relationships, something that's lost. You know, I know, Brian, a lot of what you talk about in your podcast is people, opposite opinions. I know politics is incredibly topical at the moment. And in the time where we can't sit around the table and have a coffee with someone with the opposite opinion than us is inherently wrong for me. You know, and I'm not just talking about American politics, whether you, for example, going to vote for Trump or you're going to vote for Kamala Harris. But the same thing happened, the same divide happened when it was vax or no vax. The same divide is happening between whether you eat meat or whether you're vegan. It's divide happening all the time. You know, American politics is just a symptom of what's wrong with society. And what's wrong with society is that we have forgotten the importance of cultivating relationships, which is, let's get all the opinions and hear people out and still get along and still love each other regardless of that. If we can't do that, we are not into diversity. That's actually a very strong point to make, but that's our feeling. And then T for impact is trust, the ability to not only create trust, in other words, get people to trust you as an expert in your field so that you can influence them positively, but also our ability to trust is gone. And, you know, there's so much talk out there about manifesting, and people would say you have to journal to manifest and all this crap people are many times talking about. And I'm not going against that. I'm just saying sometimes the stuff is not practical. But for me, if you really want to get into manifestation, you have to deal with your psychological issues, become innocent again, learn to trust other people again, and use that as a foundation for relationships. And so those are some of the principles that we counsel on in our leadership programs in order to get healthy people at the top again, and not people who's so skeptical and so imprinted by parents and upbringing and society and teachers and whatever has happened to them, that they actually are not in the position to lead other people.
And this is what you would do at the beginning of one of these 5-day retreats. Is that correct?
Yeah, we usually take a part of the program per day. So we'll say, look, today is influence day or influence day. Tomorrow is meaning day and position day, and we take it through the whole 5 days, and we have really robust conversations about it. And we encourage people to bring their different opinions to the table and differ with each other and learn out of that, and not murder each other because of that.
Not murder each other. That'd be helpful. Yes. You know, we started out before we got on the air talking about the U.S. election and Trump versus Harris. And I don't want to get political, but just from a leadership standpoint, they're very different leadership characters, traits in those two different individuals. One sort of the authoritarian attitude, and one sort of the team building relationship attitude. You know, some people would say it's the empathetic leader versus the managerial or authoritarian leader. In your experience and in your training of people, what are the leadership traits that are more successful in today's environment?
Well, Brian, I think it depends on the environment in which they operate. You know, there's strange things happening with different generations and with different peer groups. You know, for example, you have a lot of feminine, you know, strong feminine, borderline aggressive movements at the moment going on. And especially in a country like Australia, it's become so aggressive that the opposite is now happening. So me and Mike saw the rise of Trump all over the world way before it happened, and we because you keep your ears and your eyes on the ground, right? And we were looking at these masterminds of ours, and what's nice about these masterminds is that you in it, you're sitting with entrepreneurs that's a sample from a country, and you keep your ears on the ground. And we would sit in Australia, for example, and it would be feminist, like I'm not talking about female rights. I'm talking about really hardcore, aggressive feminist movements, and to the point where, you know, some of those same females who were fighting for female rights were starting to turn around in Australia and going, "What have we done? We've fought so hard for female rights that there's no future for our sons in this country, and now we're going to actually leave the country because there's no jobs for them." I mean, the irony of this, right? And so we saw a lot of these feminist movements all over the first world countries. And suddenly, me and Mike started to see barbershops popping up everywhere at incredible rates. We would be in a shopping center and see 3 barbershops almost next to each other. And I said to Mike, look what's happening here. The male movements is returning in response to the female movements, because it's almost on planet Earth, there always needs to be a balance. You can't have males ruling the world without expecting the females at some stage is going to stand up. You can't have aggressive females starting all female clubs where males is not even allowed and not expect the males to respond. So we looked at this, and we looked at the election way back then, and we said, look, I think the male movements is going to rise again, and there's going to be a need for strong male leadership, even if that means authoritarian, because of the way I almost want to say the ladies has behaved, and I'm not going to get shot down for this, but I'm quite open and confident about the fact that, you know, if I get invited to an aggressive feminist talk, I just tell them, look, if guys are not allowed there, I don't want to go. I'm not going to repeat the same thing. How am I going to address the way things happened in the past with males if I'm acting exactly in the same way? It's not going to work, Brian. We need to sit around the table and have, as a sex, a male and a female, a conversation. So I think the Donald Trump type of leadership is very much in response to a Hillary type of showing up, which I'm not very proud of. I think she actually destroyed stuff for females for the remainder of you know, our existence, because she didn't really show up as someone who's a strong female. She showed up as someone who's trying to be a male. So I think that Donald Trump type of leadership will be very well received in an audience who's sick of aggressive feminine movements. Then you look at the Kamala type of leadership. You know, people are sick of being told what to do. COVID didn't help. You know, people were told what to do, told where to go. A lot of the freedom of movement rights has been infringed on. There's a lot of females who wants to get to the top, being ambitious, see a female leader. There's a lot of need for cooperative leadership amongst a peer group. And I think that's why we're in a situation where 2 very strong leaders is face to face like that. It's not as simple as, is this the leadership for the future, or is this? In fact, I think the leadership for the future would be Donald and Kamala having a bit of a conversation and probably appointing a third party who's more balanced.
So you think that this strong male leader that we've seen sort of a resurgence of with Donald Trump and lots of other people around the world is a reaction to this feminist movement that has occurred and the strong females. And you're saying that the Hillary type leadership was her not showing up as a strong female, but almost becoming a male. in her leadership traits. Is that how I interpret what you said?
Exactly.
Really? And so what's the solution? You're saying it's not the empathetic female Kamala, and it's not the strong authoritarian Donald. It's something in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you a story, Brian. Me and Mike traveled to Mongolia many years ago. And we had the privilege of, we took a group there actually to go and see what it looks like. You know, the whole country is still a nomad country. You go to Ulaanbaatar and then you're there, and it's basically the only big city. And then you get into a 4x4 and you go into nothingness. There's not even roads. They take you into a 4x4 and then you go and live in all these gurs. And they promised us that we may come across some shamans. You can't book them. If you want to be commercial, you can book them. But if you really want to meet a proper shaman in Mongolia, you have to just drive around and ask for a shaman. And if they would like to chat to you, they will. And we were lucky enough to have a guy joining our group in one of the gurs one evening. And we had the opportunity to ask him questions. We couldn't understand each other's languages. And we had an interpreter there. And we were allowed to ask him questions. And we asked him, we said to the shaman, we said, look, explain to us how all these religions on planet Earth is ever going to work out. It's always going to be war. You know, you have the Christians, you have the Muslims, you have the Hindus. It's war and it's fights. And how are we going to solve this problem? Shall we look at a world religion? Shall we all sit around the table and come up with a religion that works for everyone? And the shaman said something to me that I'll never ever forget. He said to me, Landi, you never ever want to dilute people's beliefs. He says the Christians should remain Christian, and the Muslims should remain Muslim, and the Hindus should remain Hindus, and the spiritual cult, if you want to, should whatever. They should remain who they are. What's more important is that we should get them around a table to share their beliefs. And that was something that made a huge impact for me. That made me think, right, let's not try and change Kamala Harris' point of view. Let's not try and change Donald Trump's point of view. Let's get the two of them to chat with each other and come up with a win-win solution.
I've interviewed several female executives that say that it's difficult, if not almost impossible, to be feminine in today's work environment. That they've lost this ability to be feminine, and they miss that. Have you heard that?
Oh, a lot. And I do not agree with that at all. I think the beauty of being in a leadership position as a female is to have intelligence and impact as a very feminine female. I get a lot of compliments on that when I'm on stage, is the way I dress and the way I show up and the way I do female things and put makeup on, and I have my earrings and I have my high heels and I have all the stuff that I do and enjoy. I have my long hair. So many people have told me I have to cut my hair and I can't be blonde, and you know, I'm going to have to fight in a man's world, and I don't believe it. And I think it's because of having a very strong, sensible father, you know. I remember when I was doing my master's degree, I was behind with my studies, and my dad wasn't the type of person who liked his daughter to be behind with things, because he taught me to be competitive in the business world in a healthy way. And so he said to me, I'll do one thing for you, but that's the only thing I'm going to do for you. And then after that, you have to make it work, because I had to put my thesis forward, and I had only a few months. And in that few months, I had to do studies, get the results, put it in a thesis and everything. And he said, I'll go and I'll introduce you to my buddy, which is the head of human resources management in a reputable bank in South Africa. And you'll explain to her why the study is important. You'll explain to her why you need to get it done in record time. All I'll do is the introduction. And I said, okay, Dad, thank you. I'll take the opportunity. And I remember we were in the bank and we were going up the lift, and I was a little bit shaky. It was the first like really prominent executive in a bank I was going to meet. I think I was like 22 or 23, still wet behind the ears. And my dad looked at me and said to me, are you nervous? I said, yes, Dad. I'm a little bit nervous. And he looked me in the eye and he said to me, Landi, can I teach you a very valuable lesson in business today? And I said, yes, Dad. He said, if you want to play with the big boys, don't piss like a puppy. And I
If
said,
you're going to
yes,
play with
Dad.
the
And I
big boys, don't piss like a puppy.
don't piss like a puppy. It's a terrible thing to say on your show. I apologize to your audience. I'm literally quoting my dad. But the message to me was, Landi, if you want to be successful and if you want to get up there and make an impact and have other people respect you and take you serious, you're going to have to become competent. It has nothing to do with your gender. And I can't tell you how many women come to me and say they are treated like this. It's tough in a man's world, blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. And you know what, Brian? Then I look at their competence, and many times they're not competent. It has nothing to do with their gender. They didn't go out there and do the work. They didn't go out there and skill themselves up. They hide behind the fact that they're women. And I'm certainly not talking for all of you women out there who's worked hard and has reached high positions. And I can promise you, Brian, those women, most of them will probably agree with me. They got the respect of their male peers. They don't have to act like males. They can be themselves, and they sit in a boardroom and people listen to them and people respect them, and they're successful because they didn't walk into their boardroom, trying to compete with men. They walk into that boardroom to be the best at their game in order to influence other people's lives positively. And I think sometimes we lose perspective.
Landi, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. We're going to take a final break for some messages and be back with some concluding comments in just 2 minutes. Stay with us, everybody. Welcome back, everyone, to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour. I'm chatting tonight with Landi Jac. She is the CEO of Circle of Excellence, a leadership coaching mastermind organization out of Cape Town, South Africa, but she does this worldwide. And it sounds absolutely fascinating. Landi, last question I got to ask you. On your profile, you say that you're a dancer. What's dance got to do with everything else that we've been talking about?
Brian, dance is something I'm very what's the word? Sentimental about. When I was a very young girl, when I was 5 years old, I went to my mom and I said, look, I want to dance. And she and my dad looked at each other very, very worried because I had very bad knock knees. When I had my two knees next to each other, it was 15 centimeters apart at the bottom. And so when my mom took me to a ballet class, the ballet teacher almost fell off her own feet laughing, saying, this girl will never in her life be able to do a plie. And so my mom and dad sat me down and they said, look, if you want to be a dancer, you're going to have to go through excruciating pain. So you have a choice to make. Either you're going to go for 2 years through excruciating pain in Forrest Gump races, and everyone's going to laugh at you and make fun at you, and you're going to struggle every night to sleep because of pain, or you can just drop it and you can't dance, make a choice. And so I went with the braces. And so for 2 years, age 6 mainly and 7, I went through excruciating pain, where they basically adjust your braces all the time to get your legs to be straight. And after 2 years, my legs were straight and I went dancing. So that was a big lesson for me. I've been a dancer since the age of 7. I've been on many stages. I've done hip hop, belly dancing, freestyle, rock and roll, many styles of contemporary dancing, modern dancing. I went all the way up to, I think it was about 2 years away from being a teacher, but by then I was studying and I was going into, business and human resources and risk management and all those things. And that took me into the boardrooms and ultimately in traveling the world. So I'm not belonging to a studio at the moment. I'm also not doing competitions and concerts, but I start every single day of my life dancing on 3 or 4 songs. I love dancing. When I do some of my keynote talks, I do a little bit of a dance on stage as well, because that's taught me a very dear lesson. And that is, if you want something, there's sometimes something you're going to have to sacrifice for that. And it's given me a relatively high pain threshold. So it's something I'm proud of. And so I do really identify with being a dancer, even though I'm now 47 years old and, most studios wouldn't want me anymore, but it's a battle I fought and one that I won. And it's given me the ability to not worry too much what people think about me these days. When you're 6 and 7 years old and girls make fun of you and whatever, it bothers you, but it gives you a true gift. It gives you the ability to have an opinion and to sort of take the consequences of that, Some people's going to like you, some people's not going to like you, and that's okay.
Well, Landi, you might be interested to know that when I was 18, 19, I was a disco dance teacher.
Wow. Wow, a disco dance teacher. How does that even work?
Exactly. I did the French twist. You have been a real pleasure to chat with tonight. Thank you. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
That's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you for joining us. I remind you, I'm on every Monday through Friday at 6 o'clock on 960 AM. You can stream me online, even from South Africa, at www.saga960am.ca. All my podcasts and videos go up on social media, my YouTube channel, my website, briancrombie.com, and all podcast servers as soon as the radio show goes to air. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I think that Landi's given us a lot of really good lessons. I love the impact line that she had. I think that her comments about sitting down with other people and getting to understand them a lot better is very helpful. I think the idea of masterminds where you interact with other people and understand what other people have got to say and what their suggestions are. And I think that this idea of going through some tough times, being willing to incur some pain in order to achieve what you really want to achieve is critically important. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Landi.